Hello everyone, and welcome to another devlog video for Lacuna Passage. Today I wanted to show you guys a few things we've been working on in Unity for converting over from a majority of Playmaker scripts to using now just almost entirely C#. So we've gone through everything we did for our original Kickstarter prototype and from the GDC demo that we created, and we've moved everything over to C#, or at least almost everything. And so now you can kind of get a feel for some of the background systems we're using to keep track of all of our possible states that the player can be in during gameplay. So in our state manager game singleton, we have a lot of states that you can keep track of and affect at different parts of the game. Some of the obvious ones here at the top are allowing different states, so allowing crouching or the use of your flashlight or jumping and photos. So just by turning any of these off, we can disallow the player to do certain things. So for example, at the beginning of the GDC demo, we have a section where you can't move, so we've disabled walking and running at that time. And then we also have some states that reflect the current state of the player. So if they're grounded, jumping, crouching, whatever, if they're currently have their flashlight on, we can control the movement speed, so that might be something we actually even tie into the survival system. So if you're really exhausted, perhaps you move a lot slower. And then, a bunch of other stuff that helps us just to focus the player's attention on certain things. So I'll give through a quick little example here real quick. Alright, so here you can see we're in the game playing. We've got all of our effects turned on. We have all of our movement states allowed. Everything, this is kind of like the default state for the player. So if everything's going well for you while you're playing, then you should see everything just like this. But with our states here, we can change a few things. So, for example, if I wanted to turn off the HUD, so let's say your battery dies, your HUD is not going to be able to reflect that. And we've got some nice little effects in there too. So if you notice the visor that you can see from your view, when you turn off the HUD, the light glare reflection turns off as well, so you can't, the glow back from your HUD is not reflected in your visor anymore. So that's kind of a neat little effect. And so you can also do some things with turning on and off objectives. So in the game, you're going to be able to set your own objective markers based on latitude and longitude that you input, or based on ones that you find, objective markers that you find embedded in files. So maybe a previous crew member embedded objective location, and you can upload that onto your data pad and turn it on or off as an objective waypoint. But for the most part, they're all, you decide when you want to turn them on. So this is that setting in our state manager that allows that. And at some points you may not be able to navigate at all, and you'll see that at the beginning. If you watched the GDC demo, you saw that the navigation was offline. And now that's a simple setting in our state manager as well, so we can turn off navigation. So we also have been working on getting the Rift integration more finalized, and so one of the things we've done with that is trying to make it so that you can swap between Rift rendering at any time. And as you can see here, we've got that working fairly well already. So we can swap at any time, and it doesn't change anything about the game. Like, you don't have to exit out and reboot and start in Rift settings. Hopefully you can just jump in and out of the Rift whenever you feel like it. So if there's a particular portion of the game that you'd like to use the Oculus Rift to play, you can just jump in and change that setting, and it should work just fine. And all the controls have been converted over too, so zooming and running and walking. Now we're going to play around a lot, obviously, with our Rift settings, because right now in the normal rendering mode, you'll notice when you run and walk around, you've got some camera bobbing, and because of that, if we turn on the Rift, since we're using the same character controller right now, those settings carry over, so you get some camera bob, which is obviously a big no-no for VR. We don't want to make the player sick from running around. So what I'm probably going to do is make it so that those camera bob settings get zeroed out when you're in the Rift, so that you won't have any discomfort with the virtual reality camera motion not reflecting how you are personally moving the Rift. So yeah, the Rift implementation is going really well. We've had to make some changes, obviously, to the HUD. You'll notice it's a little more compact in the center of the screen. And right now with the DevKit 1 that we have, the resolution is pretty low, and so the reading the text in VR is actually a little bit difficult. But obviously with the commercial version, it's going to be a lot higher resolution, so we're excited to see what that'll look like. And hopefully there won't be any issue with reading the text on the screen. And then we also have a few rendering effects that you can choose to enable or disable. So you'll notice when we're looking into the sun, one of our cool effects is the sun rays. And that's part of our lighting effects toggle. So the lighting effects toggle would get rid of the glare on the camera as well as the sun shafts. And that's just a limitation of currently how our camera setup is. So we can't turn on and off each individual effect at will, but we'll have a couple different effects that you can turn on and off together as a toggle. So the other one is our screen space ambient occlusion and screen space anti-aliasing, and that's something that you can turn on and off as well. It's maybe not as easy to tell, but if we go over here, you'll be able to see what that looks like. So if we turn that on and off, you can see the darkening around the edges of objects. So for some computers, if you have a really nice computer, you'll be able to turn that on and have some really nice ambient occlusion effects and anti-aliasing. So when taking photos, one of the things we mentioned in our last blog post is that it doesn't matter what resolution or how you're playing the game, your photos are going to turn out really, really nice. So for example, one thing, if I turn off all of our effects, right, so we've got all of our lighting effects turned off, so this is just more for if you can't run those post-processing effects and your computer's too slow, you might have to run it like this without those effects on. But if you take a photo and if we pause the game here and go to our screenshots folder, you'll notice that not only is the resolution of the image full 1080 instead of the smaller resolution we were running in the editor, but it also has those image effects still applied even though they were turned off in the game. The reason for that is that our camera that renders out photos is actually a separate camera, and since we're only having to render out one frame rather than 60 frames per second, we can have these lighting effects turned on even on lower end hardware and still get those effects. It'll just cost like an extra, at the most, like an extra half a second probably on lower end hardware to render those effects for your photographs. So your photographs are going to look great no matter what hardware you're running on. Even if you can't run at full 1080p, the photo will be rendered out at full 1080p, so you could be running in 720 or whatever, and it'll still render out this really awesome high resolution photo for you. So yeah, those are some of the things that we've been working on, converting over to C# and getting our state manager set up. And we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be a big improvement on our the amount of time it takes us to implement new features. And so now we can move on to worrying about some of our survival manager stuff and incorporating as much integration with those other features as possible. So one of those things is, like I mentioned before, the battery. So if your battery dies, so if we go in here to our current battery level, which is, I probably should organize these variables better, but the current battery level, if we change that to 2, let's say, okay, so it gave us our low warning, and if we turn on our flashlight here too, which is behind the data pad, but it's on, it should slowly run out of battery level. I guess it's taking too long. Let's go to 0.5. So we're at 0.5 for battery, and it's slowly running down, and there you go. So our battery ran out, and our HUD is off, and our data pad is off. So we are blind, essentially. When you're out in the world and you run out of battery, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. You're going to have to work on just remembering landmarks and kind of retracing your footsteps if you need to find your way back to base, or finding a way to recharge your battery while you're out in the terrain. Maybe going to like a weather station or a bank of solar panels to recharge. And so yeah, that's one of the cool things that we've already implemented with the survival features that allows us to kind of coordinate between player states and survival states. So we'll be doing more stuff with that with like our exhaustion system. So one thing that the exhaustion does right now is over a long period of time your exhaustion will go down, or I guess up. And so the more exhausted you are, the less stamina you will have available at maximum. So the stamina is how far can I run without having to stop and catch my breath. So I can run quite a ways right now, and you'll see here in a minute I'm still holding down the run button, but it'll stop because I'll run out of stamina. And there we go, so I ran out of stamina. But I had quite a bit of, I was not very exhausted, so that was quite a long ways that I could run. But later on in the game, like if you have not slept in several days and your exhaustion is really high, then you'll not be able to run as far because your maximum stamina is your current exhaustion. So I would only be able to run half as far if my exhaustion was pretty high. So yeah, that's just some of the ways that we're incorporating the player states into our other systems and tying them together. And so it's slowly come together, and it took us a little while to get everything moved over from Playmaker to C#, but it's making things a lot easier for us now to implement some of these features and connections between systems. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's kind of a little background look into the creation of the game, and hopefully in the near future we're going to start showing off a bunch more art that we'll be working on, and maybe some more features as well and some more videos. So thanks for watching, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll see you in our next devlog.